Our next guest speaker present with us today. He isn't long off from a flight from Canada just very recently, where he was involved in yet another interfaith dialogue as well as local community events. Indeed, I and the stage manager Fairoz, as well as others in here today, have had the personal privilege to have participated in interfaith trips in the past year. One with him in Geneva, where we visited the UN and the base for the World Council of Churches, and also in Pier de Primero in Italy, where Muslims and Christians were talking, living, and eating together in more than a symbolic act, but one truly enveloped by a wisdom of true unity, not uniformity. His academic background, as will be put up on the screen, means he has to balance a lot of classical Islamic study, teaching, with interreligious dialogue. So again, we are very grateful for his presence here tonight. Can you all show your appreciation for Sheikh Dr. Muhammad Ali Shomali? You can try if you want to.
Just this. Peace be with you. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, I am very grateful to God for giving me the blessing of being here for the second time, and also for being able to visit Scotland for another time in between in February when we attended the Scottish Parliament and I had time for reflection. So now Scotland brings me back again. The topic of rights for children, it's a very important topic, and I thought perhaps my contribution might be better to be talking about the significance of children from an Islamic perspective. But to be able to understand exactly the contribution of Islam, we should know what was the situation of children before Islam. Unfortunately, the society in Arab Peninsula before coming of Islam in many aspects lacked real humanity. It was a society which suffered from ignorance and darkness. But perhaps the most vulnerable were children. Children were not receiving sufficient respect and mercy, and most especially the girls. And the Quran clearly blames and condemns their practice of burying their daughters alive. So whenever someone was told that God has given you a daughter, the Quran says, ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا. Their face used to become dark out of anger. What I should do with this shame that I have a girl. Of course, there is a history for that, and that goes back to when in the past they were attacked and their women were taken by enemies. So out of that they developed this sense. But Islam brought respect for children, especially for the girls. And our Prophet used to call maximum respect for children, especially for girls. I would like to mention few examples and then make a comment that I think would be relevant to our world today. One incident which is very beautiful is our Prophet used to show lots of love to his children and grandchildren. For example, he used to kiss his grandchildren. In that society, it was a sign of weakness for a man to kiss his children. You should, keep your emotions inside. It was not a sign of strength. So one of the people who was there, he said to the Prophet, I never kissed my children. He was surprised how Rasulullah kisses his grandchildren. And Rasulullah said, Man la yarham, la yurham. If you don't show mercy, you will not receive mercy. You have to show mercy to children so that God would show mercy to you. In another incident, which may happen more than once, we find that the Prophet, when he was going to prostrate in sajda, as we call it, in prayer, sometimes his grandchildren, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, were going on back of the Prophet, and he was taking time. This is congregational prayer. And many people are in that prayer, but the Prophet had so much of love for his grandchildren that he was prolonging his prostration so that they come out of his back, and then he stands up. In one incident that made a history, once when Prophet was going to start his prayer, as you know, we start with Takbiratul Ihram. We say God is greater. So Imam Hussein, his grandson, who was very little kid, he was in the prayer and he was not able to say Allahu Akbar. And the Prophet was asked by God to repeat. He repeated 7 times this so that this young child can also say properly, God is great. So this shows that love for children is essence of religion and essence of indeed humanity. We have a beautiful hadith from Prophet Muhammad that I think can summarize many things. He said, Ahibbus Sabyan, love children. As much as you can, you should show love and your affection to children. Warhamuhum, and should have mercy on children. Mercy, in my understanding, is when you show love by giving without expectation. When I give and I expect something, this is not rahmah. Rahmah is to love, but by giving, not just loving, giving, but without expecting. And also the Prophet said, whenever you promise children, you must keep your promise. Sometimes, some of us may say, when I promise an adult, I should keep my promise. But maybe children forget. So I can promise something and later I may not be able to do it, but just to make them happy for the moment, I give a promise. But this is not right. The Prophet said, إِذَا وَعَدْتُمُوهُمْ فَفُوا لَهُمْ. When you promise children, you should keep your promise. And then he said something which I think a great lesson. He said, your children look at you as your sustainers, as if you are the Lord. You should never disappoint the people who look at you as your Lord. So what I want to say is, we, whether it is our children or any children, we should look at them as if we are responsible, because they look at us as their Lord. They look at us as their sustainers. And one of the worst things that can happen is when an innocent child has put his or her trust in us, adults, if we mistreat them, if we abuse them. Our 7th Imam, Imam Kazim, said, God never gets angry as when he gets angry when women or children are abused. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْضَبُ لِشَيْءٍ كَغَضَبِهِ لِلنِّسَاءِ وَالصِّبْيَانِ. So when children are abused, God is most unhappy with us. So my request is, of course, I don't think anyone here would be in need of this advice, but we have to work together to spread this message. That we work together to offer all children of the world, which are all innocent and which are all gifts of God, And in Islamic tradition, we believe all children, even miscarried babies, they go to heaven. Even we have hadith that a miscarried baby, when God says go to heaven, says, I don't go to heaven unless my parents join me. So all babies, all children, these are innocent. These are angels, and they go to heaven. Our responsibility is to make sure that as much as possible, we make the world safe, but not only safe, a warm and welcoming place for them. Sometimes I have this understanding that I would like to share with you. You know, when we buy, for example, a computer or a mobile, they tell us if you want to have a proper usage and life for their battery, first you should charge it completely. So if normally it takes half an hour, but puts it for a few hours or one day, so that it is 100% charged. I think we have to do the same with the children. Our childhood is when we need to make as much as possible a reserve of love and peace and tranquility, so that later in our life we would not face any problem. Children who receive love from their parents, from school, from community, these children in future would have a stable life, and they would not wish bad for other people. I am sure many of the people that do bad things and do criminal acts, if we look at their childhood, we realize that most of them have not received love and warmth when they were children. We have to make sure that we give unconditional, unlimited love and mercy to children, so that for the rest of their life they can always go back to their beautiful memories of childhood and get energy. Whenever they face a problem, they have such a reserve of light and hope in their childhood that they can always be empowered. So let us work together and promise to God that as much as we can, we make this world a better world for children, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their faith or background. May God help us, and may God be with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shomali, for your words, really appropriate to today's conference, which is around peace and unity, but particularly focusing on children. And I hope it was very enlightening for people, both Muslims and non-Muslims, about the importance that Islam places on looking after children well. And I was pleased as well, you know, again, there's so many myths about Islam and women, and Islam holds women in very high esteem. So I was really pleased that Dr. Shomali also mentioned that. So thank you again, thank you so much. Once again, Police Scotland